Jake Murphy wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the engine one more time. The big machine hummed quietly in the belly of the New Horizon. Everything looked good. Captain Lisa Hayes would be happy to know the ship was ready for whatever came next. The year was 2087 and humans had just learned how to travel faster than light. Jake never thought he would see the stars up close. He was just a mechanic from Ohio who fixed things when they broke. But here he was, floating in space near a star called Proxima, farther from Earth than any human had ever been. "Jake, how's that engine looking?" Captain Hayes asked over the radio. "All good, Captain." "She's running like a dream," Jake said. He loved working with machines. They made sense to him in a way that people sometimes did not. Jake was 32 years old and had spent 10 years in the military before becoming a ship mechanic. He was not tall or strong like the soldiers, but he could fix anything that had nuts and bolts. His brown hair was always messy, and his clothes always had oil stains, but his hands were steady and his mind was sharp when it came to machines. The New Horizon was humanity's first ship built for meeting other races in space. Captain Hayes had picked the best crew she could find. There were diplomats, soldiers, scientists, and people like Jake who kept everything working. "Captain," called out Commander Vera Thorne from the bridge, "we've got company." Jake felt his stomach drop. Through the small window in the engine room, he could see lights moving in the darkness of space. Big lights, ship lights. "All hands, this is the captain," Hayes said over the ship's radio. "We have contact with unknown vessels. Everyone stay calm and do your jobs." Jake had never seen an alien before. No human had. The ships outside looked nothing like human ships. They were long and curved like giant silver snakes with glowing blue stripes running down their sides. There were 5 of them, and they were much bigger than the New Horizon. "They're trying to talk to us," said the communications officer. Captain Hayes went to the bridge to handle first contact with another species. Jake stayed in the engine room, making sure everything was ready in case they needed to run. His hands shook a little as he checked the systems again. The alien ship surrounded the New Horizon but did not attack. After an hour of talking back and forth, Captain Hayes announced that the aliens wanted to come aboard. "They call themselves the Kavari," she said. "They seem peaceful, but stay alert." Jake heard footsteps in the hallways above. Heavy footsteps. That did not sound human. He kept working, trying to stay busy so he would not think about what was happening. The engine room door opened with a hiss. Jake looked up from his work and saw the biggest person he had ever seen walk in. But it was not a person. It was definitely not human. She was 7 feet tall with skin that looked like it was made of blue crystal. Her hair was white and fell to her shoulders like liquid silver. She wore armor that looked both beautiful and deadly. Her eyes were bright gold and seemed to see everything at once. "You are the one who maintains this vessel's heart," she said in perfect English, though her voice sounded like music mixed with thunder. Jake's mouth went dry. Yes, I'm the mechanic, Jake Murphy." She walked around the engine room looking at everything. Her movements were smooth and dangerous like a big cat hunting. Jake noticed that she moved without making any sound, even though she was so big. "I am Zarakai of the Kavari Empire," she said. "Your people build interesting machines." "Thank you," Jake said, not knowing what else to say. Zarakai spent 20 minutes looking at the engines and asking Jake questions about how they worked. She seemed very interested in the way humans built things. Jake found himself explaining how the faster-than-light drive worked, even though he was nervous. "Your captain believes her people are ready to meet the galaxy," Zarakai said. "I hope so," Jake replied. Zarakai smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. The galaxy is not kind to the weak. More Kavari came into the engine room. They were all tall and strong-looking, but none as impressive as Zarakai. They spoke to each other in their own language, which sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Captain Hayes arrived with Commander Thorne and 2 security guards. "Is everything all right here?" she asked. Zarakai turned to face the captain. "Your species interests us. We have decided to learn more about humans." "That's wonderful," Captain Hayes said. "We're very interested in learning about your people, too." Good, Zarakai said. According to Kavari law, when we meet a new species, we may claim a prize to study their ways. Jake saw Captain Hayes go pale. A prize? One of your people will come with us. They will live among the Kavari for one galactic cycle. This is how we learn. Commander Thorne stepped forward. And if we refuse? Zarakai's golden eyes turned cold. You misunderstand. This is not a request. Captain Hayes straightened her shoulders. Then I volunteer. As the leader of this mission, I should be the one to go. But Zarakai shook her head. She walked over to Jake, who was still holding his wrench. I choose this one. Everyone stared at Jake. He felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Him? Captain Hayes asked. But he's just a mechanic. Surely you'd want to learn from our diplomats or our scientists. Zarakai placed a large hand on Jake's shoulder. Her grip was gentle, but he could feel the strength in it. I have made my choice. Jake looked at his captain, then at Commander Thorne, then at the other humans in the room. They all looked as confused and worried as he felt. How long? Jake asked quietly. 18 of your months, Zarakai said. Jake's mind raced. 18 months away from Earth, away from everything he knew, living with aliens who could crush him without trying. But he saw no choice in Zarakai's golden eyes. Okay, he said. I'll go. Captain Hayes started to protest, but Jake held up his hand. It's all right, Captain. Someone has to do it. As the Kavari prepared to take him to their ship, Jake wondered why an alien warrior would choose a simple mechanic over trained diplomats and officers. He had no idea that this moment would change the fate of all humanity. The Kavari ship was nothing like the New Horizon. Everything was bigger, harder, and seemed built for war. Jake followed Zarakai through halls that could fit 3 humans side by side. The walls were made of the same crystal-like material as Kavari skin, and they glowed with soft blue light. Other Kavari stared at Jake as they walked. Some looked curious. Others looked like they thought he was a joke. Jake tried to keep his head up and walk straight, even though he felt like a child among giants. This will be your space, Zarakai said, stopping at a door that slid open with a whisper. The room was simple but clean. There was a bed that was too big for him, a small table, and a window that showed the stars. Jake set down the small bag of clothes that Captain Hayes had let him pack. Someone will bring you food, Zarakai said. Rest. Tomorrow we reach my world. After she left, Jake sat on the edge of the big bed and tried not to think about how far from home he was. The stars outside the window were not the ones he grew up seeing. He was alone among aliens who could break him like a stick. A small alien came in carrying a tray of food. This one was not Kavari. He was about Jake's height, with green skin and 4 arms. I am Crix, he said in a squeaky voice. I serve Zarakai. You are the human prize. I'm Jake, he said, taking the food. It looked strange but smelled good. Crix looked around to make sure no one was listening. Be careful, human. The Kavari test everything. They will test you too. Test me how? But Crix was already leaving. Eat, sleep. Tomorrow will be hard. Jake ate the alien food. It tasted like chicken mixed with cinnamon. He tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw Zarakai's golden eyes staring at him. The next morning, the ship arrived at Veltar, the Kavari homeworld. Through his window, Jake could see a planet covered in mountains and crystal formations that caught the light of 2 suns. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Zarakai came to get him. She was wearing different armor now, with more decorations that probably meant she was important. Welcome to Veltar, she said. Try not to die. Jake was not sure if she was joking. They took a small ship down to the planet's surface. The air was thin and cold, and the gravity was heavier than Earth's. Jake felt like he was carrying extra weight on his shoulders. Zarakai's home was built into the side of a mountain. It looked like someone had carved rooms and halls directly into the rock. Towers and bridges stretched across deep valleys filled with glowing crystals. Inside, more aliens stared at Jake. Most were Kavari, but there were others too. All of them looked stronger than humans. Jake began to understand why Zarakai had said the galaxy was not kind to the weak. Zarakai, called a voice that sounded like grinding stones. A huge Kavari male approached them. His armor had even more decorations than Zarakai's. So, this is your human prize. General Thakmor, Zarakai said with a small bow. Yes, this is the human Jake Murphy. General Thakmor walked around Jake like he was examining a broken machine. Small, weak, soft. Why did you choose this one? That is my business, Zarakai said. Her voice stayed calm, but Jake heard something dangerous underneath. Indeed, Thakmor said. We shall see what use such a creature can be. Zarakai led Jake deeper into the mountain home. They passed rooms full of weapons, halls where young Kavari practiced fighting, and chambers where adults discussed things in their musical language. This is where you will stay, Zarakai said, showing him to a small room carved from the rock. You will help with basic tasks. You will observe our ways. You will learn. What kind of tasks? Jake asked. Whatever I tell you to do. For the next few weeks, Jake's life became a series of strange jobs. He carried things, cleaned things, and helped fix simple machines. The Kavari workers treated him like a pet that could use tools. Some were kind, others ignored him, and a few seemed to enjoy making things hard for him. But Jake was good at fixing things, and the Kavari machines were not that different from human ones. When a water pump broke in the kitchen area, Jake fixed it in 10 minutes. When the heating system in the guard quarters stopped working, Jake found the problem and made it run better than before. The other aliens noticed. They started asking him to look at their broken equipment. Jake was happy to help. Working with machines made him feel useful and less homesick. One day, while Jake was fixing a communications device, another human walked into the workshop. Jake almost dropped his tools. You must be the new guy, the man said in English. He was older than Jake, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes. I'm Pete Collins. Been here about 4 years now. 4 years? Jake said. I thought the deal was for 18 months. Pete laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Oh, kid, you have so much to learn about the Kavari. Pete had been taken by a different Kavari noble from a human colony ship that got lost. He told Jake that some prizes never went home. The thing about the Kavari, Pete explained, is they only respect strength. If you show weakness, they will break you. If you show too much strength, they will see you as a threat and kill you. You have to find the middle path. How do I do that? Watch and learn, and whatever you do, don't trust them completely, even the nice ones. That evening, Zarakai called Jake to her private chambers. The room was filled with weapons, maps of star systems, and what looked like battle plans. You have been useful, she said, without looking up from a glowing table covered in symbols. The others speak well of your repair skills. Thank you, Jake said. Do not thank me yet. Zarakai finally looked at him. Tomorrow, you will see what the Kavari truly are. We have combat trials. You will watch and learn why the weak do not survive in our society. The next day, Jake stood in a great hall carved from the mountain's heart. Hundreds of Kavari filled stone seats that rose up the walls like steps. In the center was a fighting area covered in sand. Young Kavari warriors entered the arena. They fought with weapons, with their hands, and with their natural crystal-hard skin. Jake watched in horror as some fighters were seriously hurt. A few did not get back up. This is how we choose who is worthy, Zarakai explained. She sat in a place of honor with other important Kavari. Jake stood behind her like a servant. The weak die. The strong live to protect the empire. Jake wanted to look away but forced himself to watch. This was the world he was living in now. These were the people who held his life in their hands. During one fight, a young female warrior was knocked down hard. She was bleeding and could barely stand, but she kept trying to get up to continue fighting. Why doesn't someone stop it? Jake whispered to Zarakai. Because giving up means death, she replied. Better to die fighting than live as a coward. The young warrior fell again and did not get up. The crowd was silent as medics carried her away. That night, Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about the warrior who would not give up, even when she was clearly beaten. He thought about Pete's warning about showing weakness or strength. He began to wonder if Zarakai's tests were just beginning, and if he would be strong enough to survive whatever came next. 3 months into Jake's stay on Veltar, everything changed. Zarakai received orders from the Kavari High Command. The Empire was facing rebellions on several worlds, and she was being sent to crush them. "You will come with me," she told Jake, as she prepared her war gear. A warrior's prize accompanies them to battle. Jake felt his stomach twist. "I'm not a soldier." "No," Zarakai agreed, "but you are mine. Where I go, you go." Jake packed his few belongings and said goodbye to Pete Collins, who looked worried. "Be careful out there," Pete warned. "War brings out the worst in the Kavari. Don't do anything that looks like helping the enemy, even if you're just trying to help people." Zarakai's warship was even bigger than the one that brought Jake to Veltar. It carried 500 Kavari warriors, along with weapons and vehicles Jake had never seen before. The ship's name was War's Edge, and it looked like it could destroy a small moon. On the first day of travel, Zarakai showed Jake around the ship. In the warrior quarters, he saw other aliens who had been taken as prizes. Most looked scared and beaten down. A few looked angry. None looked happy. "Why do you bring us to war?" asked a small, furry alien who had been taken from a mining world. "Because a warrior's strength is shown by what they possess," Zarakai replied, "including the loyalty of those they command." Jake began to understand that he was not just a prisoner or a pet. He was a symbol of Zarakai's power. Other Kavari officers judged her partly by how well she controlled her prizes. The first battle was on a world called Kethmar. The rebels there had been fighting Kavari rule for 2 years. As Jake watched from the ship's command center, Kavari forces landed on the planet like a silver storm. But something went wrong. The rebel forces fought differently than the Kavari expected. Instead of meeting them head-on in honorable combat, the rebels used hit-and-run tactics. They struck fast and disappeared before the Kavari could respond. "Cowards," growled War Chief Bracknell, who commanded the forces on the ship's left flank. He was Zarakai's biggest rival and never missed a chance to question her decisions. "They fight like insects." Jake watched the battle displays and frowned. The rebel tactics looked familiar somehow. They reminded him of something he had learned in military school back on Earth. "They're using human strategies," he said without thinking. Every Kavari in the command center turned to stare at him. Jake realized he had just spoken out of turn in front of high-ranking officers who could kill him for disrespecting them. "Explain," Zarakai said calmly. Jake's mouth went dry, but he forced himself to speak. "The way they're moving, the timing of their attacks, it's called guerrilla warfare. Humans developed it when fighting larger, stronger enemies." "Impossible," Bracknell snarled. "Humans are weak creatures from one small world. How could they influence rebels on the far side of the galaxy?" But Zarakai was studying the battle displays with new interest. "Continue," she told Jake. "If they're really using human tactics, they'll try to make you chase them into prepared positions. They want you to split up your forces so they can attack smaller groups." As if to prove Jake's point, the rebel forces suddenly retreated toward a canyon system. Bracknell immediately ordered his warriors to pursue them. "Wait," Zarakai said. "If the human is correct, that canyon could be a trap." "You would take tactical advice from a prize?" Bracknell demanded. "Have you forgotten your warrior's pride?" Zarakai's eyes flashed dangerously, but she kept her voice level. "I take good advice wherever I find it." The argument was interrupted by distress calls from Bracknell's forces. They had entered the canyon and walked into a perfectly planned ambush. Rebel forces on the canyon walls rained down weapons fire while blocking both ends of the passage. Jake watched in horror as dozens of Kavari warriors died in the trap. These were not just enemy soldiers to him anymore. He had lived with Kavari for months. Some had been kind to him. Seeing them die felt wrong, even if they were his captors. "Can your human tactics get my warriors out of that canyon?" Zarakai asked Jake quietly. Jake studied the tactical display. His mind raced through everything he had learned about military strategy. Maybe, but I'd need to know more about your equipment and what the rebels might be using. Zarakai gave Jake access to the ship's tactical computers. For the next hour, he worked alongside Kavari officers to plan a rescue mission. It felt strange to be helping his captors fight a war, but he could not stand by and watch people die. The plan Jake helped design worked. Zarakai's forces used a combination of traditional Kavari strength and human-inspired misdirection to break the rebel trap and rescue the survivors. After the battle, Bracknell approached Jake with murder in his eyes. "Your interference cost Kavari lives," he accused. "If we had fought with honor instead of using cowards' tricks, our warriors would not have needed rescue. Your honor got them trapped in the first place," Jake replied before he could stop himself. Bracknell reached for his weapon, but Zarakai stepped between them. "The human served me as ordered. He is under my protection." "Your protection of this creature makes you weak," Bracknell said. "Other commanders are beginning to notice." That night, Zarakai called Jake to her private quarters. For the first time since he had known her, she looked tired. "You should not have spoken to Bracknell that way," she said. "He could have killed you before I could stop him." "I'm sorry," Jake said. "I just got angry watching good warriors die for stupid reasons." Zarakai looked at him with an expression he could not read. "You called them good warriors. You care about Kavari lives." Jake thought about it. "I care about any life, human, Kavari, or anyone else. That's just how humans are built, I guess." "How you are built," Zarakai repeated slowly. "Tell me, Jake Murphy, what do you think of this war?" Jake knew this was dangerous ground, but something in Zarakai's voice made him tell the truth. "I think the rebels are using human ideas because human ideas work. We learned how to fight bigger, stronger enemies because we had to. We learned how to survive by being smart instead of just being strong." "And what do you think that means for the Kavari Empire?" Jake met her golden eyes. "I think the Empire is in trouble if it can't learn new ways to fight. The rebels are getting human help from somewhere. If you keep using the same old tactics, you're going to keep losing warriors." Zarakai was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "Get some rest. Tomorrow we attack another rebel world. I want you to study their tactics again." As Jake left her quarters, he wondered why she was really asking for his help. Was she genuinely interested in his ideas, or was this all part of some larger test? And if the rebels really were getting human help, where was it coming from? Teat. Next morning brought news that would answer at least one of those questions. Long-range sensors had detected a damaged ship limping away from the battle zone. When they brought it aboard, Jake's heart nearly stopped. The ship was human-made, and its crew included 2 people Jake recognized from the New Horizons database. Humanity was out here in Kavari space, and they were definitely not neutral in this war. The rescued human ship was called the Lucky Break, and it was definitely not lucky. Its hull was torn open in 3 places, its engines were dead, and its crew of 4 looked like they had been through hell. Jake stood with Zarakai in the wars, Edge Medical Bay, watching Kavari doctors work on the injured humans. 2 were unconscious, but the other 2 were awake and scared. "I am Amy Foster," said the woman who seemed to be their leader. She was about Jake's age, with short red hair and engineer's clothes. "We're from the colony ship New Promise." Jake's heart jumped. New Promise had left Earth 5 years ago, heading for a system on the edge of known space. Everyone assumed they had settled successfully and were building a new world for humanity. "What happened to your colony?" Zarakai asked. Amy's eyes moved between Jake and the tall alien warrior. She clearly did not know what to make of seeing another human with the Kavari. "We never made it to our target system," Amy explained. "Our navigation computer failed, and we got lost. We've been drifting from system to system trying to find our way home. And helping rebels fight the Kavari Empire," Zarakai added quietly. Amy's face went pale. "I don't know what you mean." But Jake could see the truth in her eyes. He also noticed something else. Amy kept looking at him like she recognized him from somewhere. Later, when Zarakai allowed Jake to speak privately with Amy, the truth came out. Amy had been an engineer on Earth before joining the colony mission. She knew Jake's reputation for fixing impossible problems. "Jake Murphy," she said with amazement. "You're the guy who kept the orbital stations running during the solar storm crisis. What are you doing with them?" Jake explained how he had been chosen as Zarakai's prize. Amy listened with growing anger. "They kidnapped you," she said. "And now you're helping them fight other humans?" "It's not that simple," Jake replied. "The Kavari aren't all bad, and the situation out here is more complicated than you think." Amy told Jake about the scattered human colonies that had gotten lost or been attacked. Small groups of humans were spread across dozens of worlds, trying to survive in a galaxy that saw them as weak and primitive. "We've been sharing our knowledge with anyone who would fight against the Kavari," Amy admitted. "Our tactics, our technology, our ways of thinking about problems. It's the only weapon we have." Jake felt torn. He understood why the lost human colonies would help rebels fight the Empire. But he also knew that many Kavari were good people who were just following their culture's ways. "There's something else," Amy said quietly. "We've been in contact with other humans who were taken as prizes. There's a whole network of us scattered across Kavari space." That night, Jake could not sleep. He was not just Zarakai's prize anymore. He was part of a larger story involving scattered human colonies, rebel alliances, and a secret network of captured humans. The next morning brought more complications. War Chief Bracknell announced that he had discovered proof of human interference in the rebellion. "The rebels are using human-designed weapons," he declared at the morning briefing. "Human communication codes, even human food supplies found in rebel bases." Bracknell's eyes fixed on Jake. "I believe we have spies among us." Zarakai stepped forward. "Are you accusing my prize of treason?" "I am saying that humans cannot be trusted," Bracknell replied. "They smile and pretend to help while secretly working against us." Jake felt every eye in the room turn toward him. This was the moment Pete Collins had warned him about. Show too much strength and they would see him as a threat. Show too much weakness and they would break him. "I've done nothing but try to help save Kavari lives," Jake said clearly. "If that makes me a traitor, then your definition of loyalty is pretty screwed up." Several Kavari officers growled at his boldness. Bracknell's hand moved to his weapon, but Zarakai surprised everyone by laughing. "The human speaks truth," she said. "His actions have saved more Kavari warriors than Bracknell's rigid tactics have." "You defend him because you are weak," Bracknell snarled. "A true warrior would not need advice from a primitive slave." "A true warrior uses every advantage available," Zarakai replied. Her voice stayed calm, but Jake could see the dangerous light in her golden eyes, including the intelligence of those they command. The argument was interrupted by an urgent message from Kavari High Command. The Empress herself wanted to meet with Zarakai and her human prize. They were ordered to return to the capital world immediately. As the war's edge changed course for the Kavari home system, Jake worried about what the Empress wanted with him. Amy Foster had been allowed to stay aboard as a technical prisoner, and she shared Jake's concerns. "Maybe she wants to use you as an example," Amy suggested. "Show other humans what happens when you cooperate with the Empire." But Jake had begun to suspect something else. Zarakai had been asking him very specific questions about human psychology, human tactics, and human ways of thinking. It felt less like curiosity and more like research. 3 days later, Jake got his answer. Zarakai called him to her quarters and showed him something that changed everything. On her personal computer screen was a detailed file about Jake Murphy. It included his military service record, his work history, his psychological profile, and even interviews with people who knew him. The file was thorough, accurate, and could only have been compiled by someone with access to Earth's databases. "You've been watching humans for a long time," Jake said quietly. "The Kavari Empire has been aware of your species for over 10 years. Zarakai admitted. "We have been studying you, and you chose me specifically because you knew I would be useful in this war." Zarakai nodded. Your profile indicated that you were adaptable, intelligent, and capable of working with others even under stress. These are rare qualities in the galaxy. Jake felt like the ground was shifting under his feet. So this whole prize thing was fake. You planned this from the beginning. The cultural requirement of taking a prize is real, Zarakai said. But yes, I had already decided you would be the most valuable human to study. Study for what? Zarakai looked out the window at the stars streaming past. The Kavari Empire is dying, Jake Murphy. We are strong, but strength alone is no longer enough. The rebels are learning to fight us using ideas we never considered. Our rigid ways of thinking are becoming our weakness. She turned back to him, with an expression he had never seen before. It was almost like hope. Some of us believe that humanity represents something the Empire needs to survive, not as subjects or slaves, but as partners. The question is whether we can convince the Empress and the High Command. Jake stared at her. You want to form an alliance with humans? I want to save my people from their own pride, Zarakai said, and I believe humans can show us how. As they approached the Kavari capital world, Jake realized that his role as a prize had been just the beginning. Now he was about to become something much more important and much more dangerous, humanity's first real ambassador to an alien empire. Whether that would save both species or destroy them remained to be seen. The Kavari capital world of Morden was a planet-sized city that stretched from pole to pole. Massive crystal towers reached toward the sky like frozen lightning, connected by bridges that spanned entire continents. Jake had never imagined anything so beautiful or so overwhelming. The War's Edge docked at a military station orbiting the planet. From there, Jake and Zarakai took a smaller ship down to the surface, landing at a complex that looked like it could hold 1 million people. This is the Grand Arena, Zarakai explained as they walked through halls that made her mountain home look tiny. The Empress holds court here when making decisions that affect the entire empire. Jake tried not to show how nervous he was. Alien. Nobles in magnificent armor filled the corridors, all of them staring at the small human walking beside one of their war leaders. Some looked curious, others looked angry, and a few looked hungry, like predators watching prey. Remember, Zarakai said quietly, show them strength but not aggression. Show them intelligence but not arrogance. The Empress values wisdom above all else. What if I mess this up? Jake asked. Then we all die, Zarakai replied matter-of-factly. The Empress, my people, your people, and probably several other species as well. Jake swallowed hard. No pressure. They entered a great hall that took Jake's breath away. The ceiling was so high it disappeared in shadows, supported by columns carved from single crystal formations. Thousands of Kavari nobles filled terraced seats that rose up the walls like a spiral staircase. At the center was a raised platform where the most important figures sat. The Empress Valkyra was ancient even by Kavari standards. Her crystal skin had taken on a deep blue color that spoke of great age and wisdom. She wore simple robes instead of armor. But Jake could feel the power that radiated from her like heat from a fire. Approach, the Empress commanded in a voice that filled the enormous hall. Jake walked forward with Zarakai, trying not to stumble. When they reached the base of the platform, Zarakai knelt in respect. Jake hesitated for a moment, then knelt as well. Rise, the Empress said. Zarakai, daughter of warriors, you have brought us interesting news from the outer campaigns. Yes, Majesty. The humans' insights have proven valuable in understanding rebel tactics. Murmurs filled the hall. Jake could hear some voices that sounded impressed, others that sounded disgusted. And yet, called a familiar voice, some question whether accepting advice from primitives shows strength or weakness. War Chief Bracknell stepped forward from the crowd of nobles. Behind him walked several other high-ranking Kavari who clearly agreed with him. The human Jake Murphy helped design the strategy that saved your trapped warriors, Zarakai said firmly. Would you rather they had died for the sake of pride? I would rather we had fought with honor, Bracknell replied. Using cowards' tactics makes us no better than the rebels we fight. The Empress raised her hand for silence. The human will speak for himself. Tell us, Jake Murphy of Earth, What do you think of this war? Jake's mouth went dry. Every eye in the massive hall was focused on him. He thought about Pete Collins' warnings, about Zarakai's hope for an alliance, about all the scattered humans trying to survive in a hostile galaxy. Your Majesty, Jake began, his voice somehow carrying clearly through the hall. I think this war is teaching the Empire something important. You're not just fighting rebels, you're fighting new ideas. Explain, the Empress commanded. Jake took a deep breath. For thousands of years, the Kavari have been the strongest warriors in the galaxy, but strength alone isn't enough anymore. The rebels are using human strategies because human strategies work against larger, more powerful enemies. And what does that tell you about humanity? Asked a voice from the crowd. It tells me that humans learn to survive by being smart instead of just being strong. We had to because we're not the biggest or the toughest species. But we're really good at working together and thinking of new solutions to old problems. Bracknell stepped forward angrily. Are you saying humans are superior to Kavari? No, Jake said quickly. I'm saying we're different, and different can be useful. The Empress leaned forward with interest. Continue. Jake felt his confidence growing. Your Majesty, I've lived with the Kavari for almost a year now. I've seen your strength, your honor, your loyalty to each other. These are amazing qualities. But I've also seen your people die in fights they could have won if they'd been willing to try new approaches. Like what? The Empress asked. Jake looked around the hall, seeing a mix of curious and hostile faces. Like working with allies who think differently. Like using tactics that confuse enemies instead of just overpowering them. Like admitting that sometimes the best way to show strength is to be smart enough to avoid fights you don't need to have. Coward's wisdom, Bracknell sneered. Survivor's wisdom, Jake corrected. Humans have been sharing our ideas with the rebels because we want to survive. But we'd rather share them with friends than enemies. The hall erupted in noise. Some Kavari shouted in anger, others in excitement. The Empress let the chaos continue for a moment, then silenced it with a gesture. You propose an alliance, she said to Jake. I propose that we stop seeing each other as enemies and start seeing each other as people who could help each other, Jake replied. Impossible, Bracknell declared. Humans are weak. They have nothing to offer the Empire. Jake felt a flash of anger. We have plenty to offer. We've already proven that our strategies work. We're good at solving problems that seem impossible. We're excellent at building things that last. And we're really good at getting along with people who are different from us. Prove it, challenged another voice from the crowd. The Empress held up her hand. An interesting suggestion. Very well, human Jake Murphy. You claim your people have valuable skills. We shall test this claim. Jake's heart started pounding. What kind of test? You will be given 3 problems that have troubled the Empire for years, the Empress announced. You have 3 days to propose solutions. If your solutions show merit, we will consider formal contact with your Earth. If they do not. She did not finish the sentence, but Jake got the message. The first problem was presented the next morning. The Empire's supply lines were constantly being disrupted by rebel attacks. Traditional Kavari methods involved sending more soldiers to guard the supplies, but this meant fewer soldiers available for other missions. Jake spent hours studying star charts and transport schedules. Finally, he proposed something radical. Instead of making supply convoys stronger, make them unpredictable. Use multiple routes, false shipments, and decoy convoys to confuse attackers. The second problem involved diplomatic disputes between different Kavari clans. Traditional solution was combat trials, but these often led to blood feuds that lasted generations. Jake suggested mediation systems where neutral parties helped resolve disputes through negotiation instead of violence. He explained how humans had learned to settle arguments with words instead of weapons. The third problem was the most serious. Several worlds in the Empire were considering joining the rebellion because they felt the Kavari treated them as subjects rather than citizens. Jake's solution was controversial. Give the subject worlds more say in how they were governed. Instead of ruling through fear and strength, try ruling through cooperation and mutual benefit. When Jake presented his solutions to the assembled nobles, the reaction was explosive. Bracknell and his supporters called the ideas weak and dishonorable. But other nobles, led by Zarakai, argued that the human suggestions showed wisdom. These solutions require us to change fundamental aspects of Kavari culture, one elder pointed out. Maybe it's time for some changes, replied another. The old ways are not working as well as they used to. The Empress listened to the debate for hours. Finally, she called for silence. The human solutions show promise, she announced. But more importantly, they show a way of thinking that could benefit the Empire. I hereby authorize formal contact with the human homeworld Earth. The hall erupted in cheers and angry shouts. Bracknell stormed out with his supporters, clearly furious. Zarakai approached Jake with what he now recognized as a genuine smile. Well done, Ambassador. Ambassador? Jake asked. Did you think you would be going home? Zarakai asked. Your people and mine have much to learn from each other. Someone needs to help with that learning. 3 weeks later, Jake stood on the bridge of a Kavari diplomatic vessel as it entered Earth's solar system. Captain Lisa Hayes and the crew of the New Horizon were waiting to greet them, along with representatives from Earth's government. As Jake looked at his home planet growing larger in the view screen, he thought about how much had changed. He had been taken as a prize, lived as a servant, fought as an advisor, and now served as an ambassador. The Empress had been right about one thing. Humans and Kavari had much to learn from each other. And Jake intended to make sure they learned it as friends rather than enemies. Behind him, Zarakai approached quietly. Having second thoughts about leaving Earth again? She asked. Jake smiled. Are you kidding? This is just the beginning. We've got 2 entire civilizations to introduce to each other. That's going to take more than one simple mechanic from Ohio. Good thing you are not simple, Zarakai observed. Jake laughed. No, I guess I'm not. Not anymore. As the ship entered Earth,